When Emma stepped into the first-class cabin, she felt all eyes on her. Dressed in simple jeans and a plain sweater, she didn't look like she belonged among the polished businessmen and elegant socialites. As she tucked her small bag into the overhead compartment, she could hear the faint whispers. Someone muttered that she must be lost. Another scoffed that economy was at the back. Emma kept her head down, clutching her boarding pass like a lifeline, trying to ignore the judgment in their eyes. But the stares only grew colder when she took her seat beside a sharp-suited man who didn't even bother to hide his annoyance. He cleared his throat loudly and called over the flight attendant, asking if there had been a mistake. His voice dripped with sarcasm as he asked Emma if she knew how much this seat cost. Emma forced a polite smile, her fingers trembling slightly as she pulled her phone from her bag, pretending to scroll just to avoid their gazes. She could feel her cheeks burn as another passenger, a well-dressed woman, leaned over and offered to switch seats, insisting it would be more comfortable for everyone. Emma thanked her quietly but refused, determined to hold her ground. What no one knew was that Emma wasn't just another passenger trying to sneak into luxury she couldn't afford. She was on this flight for a reason that would soon flip their smug assumptions upside down. Beneath her calm silence was a secret that could silence every whisper in that cabin. As the plane's engines roared to life, Emma glanced at her reflection in the window, her eyes steady with a hidden power. They had no idea who she really was, what they were about to find out 30,000 feet in the air. As the plane lifted off the runway, Emma leaned back in her seat, letting the soft hum of the engines drown out the murmurs around her. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to steady her breathing. This wasn't the first time people had looked at her like she didn't belong. She had spent most of her life proving them wrong. Growing up in a small town, Emma knew what it felt like to be overlooked. She had worked 2 jobs through college, built her first company out of her tiny apartment, and poured every sleepless night into turning her ideas into something real. But none of that was written on her clothes or shown in the way she carried herself. Emma liked it that way. No flashy designer bags, no expensive jewelry, no entourage to announce who she was. She believed respect should be earned, not demanded by a label. Still, sitting here surrounded by people judging her by her outfit and quiet manner stung more than she'd admit. She glanced at the man beside her. He was still glaring at her, tapping away on his laptop, probably sending some self-important email. He had no idea that Emma's signature could make or break deals that would keep his company afloat. A soft ding interrupted her thoughts as the flight attendant came by to offer drinks. The attendant gave Emma a polite but strained smile, clearly still wondering if she belonged here. Emma asked for water and thanked her warmly, ignoring the raised eyebrows from her row. Somewhere deep inside, though, a small flame flickered. She was here for a business meeting that could change everything for a struggling airline. They'd invited her personally, not knowing the same simple woman they doubted could be the one saving their brand. Emma looked out the window, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. They'd know soon enough. Emma's thoughts drifted as the plane settled into cruising altitude. She thought about the meeting waiting for her on the other side of this flight tan. Emergency gathering with the board of one of the biggest airlines in the country. Ironically, the same airline whose first-class passengers were now quietly mocking her. Their profits had been bleeding for months, and when traditional solutions failed, they'd reached out to her consulting firm without ever meeting her in person. They'd only heard of the CEO who turned failing brands into success stories overnight. They didn't know that CEO was Emma, the simple woman they wouldn't spare a second glance at in a luxury cabin. The man beside her let out a loud sigh, pulling her back to the present. He was arguing with someone on his phone now, voice low but sharp. From the snippets Emma caught, he was an executive for the same airline. She almost laughed at the irony. He had no idea the woman he wanted moved to economy, was the same person whose plan could save his job. She wondered how he'd react when she walked into the boardroom later. Not in jeans, but in the sharp suit waiting in her carry-on. A few rows ahead, the well-dressed woman who had tried to switch seats kept glancing back. Emma could feel the curiosity burning in her eyes. Maybe she was used to getting what she wanted, bending people with a smile and a polite insult. Emma shifted her gaze to the flight attendants, who now spoke to the same executive in hushed tones. Maybe they'd heard about the secret meeting tour rumors, had been swirling in the industry for weeks. Emma's phone buzzed softly with a message from her. "Assistant, board is nervous. They don't know you're on the same flight. Stay calm." Emma smirked, locking her screen. She had no plans to reveal herself just yet. Let them whisper. Let them guess. The truth would hit harder when the cabin doors opened. Turbulence shook the cabin slightly, and Emma steadied her cup of water, her mind sharper than ever. The executive next to her shot her an irritated look, as if she was somehow responsible for the bump in the air. He leaned closer, uninvited, his voice dripping with forced politeness as he asked where she was heading. Emma looked at him, her calm eyes giving nothing away, and replied simply, "Business." He laughed under his breath, clearly amused by her answer, then turned away as if she'd confirmed every judgment he'd made. Emma's phone buzzed again, another message from her assistant. "They're panicking. The board's legal advisor just landed. They still think you're coming on a later flight." She tucked her phone away, heart beating a little faster. Every minute that passed tightened the knot around her plan. This deal wasn't just another job. If she pulled this off, her firm's name would become the gold standard in corporate turnarounds. But if she failed, the whispers in this cabin would feel like nothing compared to the industry backlash waiting for her back home. The flight attendant returned. Offering the man beside her another drink, he didn't even acknowledge Emma this time. Instead, he bragged loudly about the big player the airline's board had hired. He spoke as if he knew the CEO personally, throwing out guesses and half-truths to impress the listeners nearby. Emma held back a laugh, hearing him describe her as an old man with a no-nonsense attitude. If only he knew. A few rows down, the well-dressed woman was now on a video call, whispering about the secret meeting and how some big shot consultant was going to decide their future. Emma caught her own name mispronounced, of course mixed into the gossip. The cabin felt smaller now, humming with secrets everyone thought they knew but didn't. Emma sat up straighter, glancing out the window as the city lights below grew closer. Soon the plane would land, the doors would open, and every smug face around her would come face to face with the simple woman they had. Humiliated, unaware, she held the future of their luxury seats in her hands as the cabin lights dimmed for landing. Emma's mind raced through final details of her pitch numbers, strategies, backup plans. But just as she felt ready, her phone buzzed again with a new message. It wasn't from her assistant this time. Instead, it was from a private number she didn't recognize. "We know you're on this flight. Be ready for questions when you land." Emma's breath caught for a second. Who could it be? She turned her phone over, trying to mask the sudden unease twisting in her chest. Did someone leak her name to the press? Or worse, had someone on the board decided to play dirty? She scanned the cabin. The executive beside her was now deep in conversation with another man who had quietly swapped into the empty seat across the aisle. She hadn't even noticed him sit down. He wore a dark suit, no tie, and a small airline pin on his lapel. He looked at Emma once too briefly, then turned back to the executive, whispering something that made both men glance her way. Emma shifted her eyes back to the window, fighting the urge to react. She knew corporate games could get nasty, but this felt different. This wasn't just about her being the CEO. No one expected. Someone was clearly afraid of what she might do. When she stepped off this plane, the stakes had just jumped higher. If the board was trying to corner her or spin the narrative before she could even speak, her whole plan might crumble before it began. A soft announcement cut through the tension. The captain's voice calm as he told everyone to buckle up for landing. Emma gripped the armrest, her mind racing faster than the plane descending through the clouds. She could feel the eyes on her now, just judgment, but something sharper, heavier. Whatever was waiting at that gate wasn't just a meeting roomette. Was a test she hadn't seen coming. And there was no turning back. The plane touched down with a soft bump, and the cabin filled with the usual rustle of passengers reaching for bags and turning on phones. Emma stayed seated, her calm mask firmly in place while the man beside her pretended not to glance her way. The stranger across the aisle stood, adjusted his jacket, and gave Emma a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. She met his stare, evenly refusing to blink first. When the seatbelt sign switched off, the first-class passengers scrambled to grab their belongings, desperate to be the first out. Emma stayed seated until the aisle cleared. Then,